Hi, this is Chuck out here at Midori Farm today. It's partly cloudy, nice day. What we're going to do today is we're going to plant out our kale. Now, sometimes you're going to grow your own plants from seeds, and sometimes you're going to have to go to the home centers and nurseries or your best friend, the farmer's house, and get some transplants. And that's what we did with these. These are Cavolo Nero kale. I was not able to find the seeds, but fortunately my home center had them, so I bought out 22 of these. Planting out your transplants is pretty simple. We're just going to bring you through it step by step how we do it out here at Midori Farm. First thing I always do is I figure out how much space I have and how much spacing I'm going to need between plants. These Cavolo Nero plants, they grow pretty tall and pretty big, so I'm going to give them about 25 or 30 centimeters or a little bit more than a foot of space for each plant. And then I'm going to space them out in double rows like this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these plants and I'm going to put them with their pot right where I'm going to put them. So let's do that now. Whoa, done. All right. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to show you how we dig a hole, what we put in our hole before we put that transplant in the ground. So, we take our shovel and we take some of our homemade compost. Now the first thing to remember on any sort of transplant is before you put it in the ground, before you even buy it, what you should do is you should check it for any signs of disease or pests, especially like aphids or spider mites or something like that. I've already done this, but I'll show you anyway. What you do is you look on the underside of the leaves for any sort of eggs or any sort of lesions or any sort of insect activity or fungus or other sort of rot or disease. These are clean. The next thing you're going to do is when you got it ready to transplant, you're going to give it a gentle squeeze just to make that root ball and the dirt kind of make into a solid shape. It's going to make it just a little easier to transplant, and it's going to keep the roots intact for you. Not too hard, not too hard. Then you're going to say, okay, I want my hole right here. You're going to put your shovel in there. Make the hole a little bit deeper than what you need because you're going to take a nice handful of your compost, put it right in that hole first. Then you're going to take your fingers and do a Mr. Spock. Turn your plant over, and there it is right in your hand. You can see the root ball. If it seems like the root ball is a little bit too tight and a little bit too, you can actually massage it and loosen it up a bit. This one seems just fine, so I'm just going to take that, put it right into the hole like that. Then I'm going to take this extra soil that I pulled out of the hole, put it around the plant, just like this. And then with these two hands, I'm just going to apply a little bit of pressure on either side of the stem, just like that. What that's going to do is it's going to make that plant just stand up nice and tall and be ready for everything else. It's also going to create a small indentation where some extra water is going to collect, and that'll make sure that those new roots get enough water so they can get established. So let's do that for all these plants. Okay, so after planting our transplants in the ground, we have to wonder what's going to come after those plants. Are there any insects or anything else that are interested in them? And right now there's a lot of cabbage moths and other butterflies that would love to get their teeth into my kale. Here's my cabbage, which of course the cabbage moths are named for, so of course I've got this floating row cover over it. First thing you do is you put out these half hoops or these green supports for it, and then you stretch this netting over the top of it. Now there's several different grades and qualities of this, some that last a year or two, some that should last 5 or 6 years, some that really cut out the UV, some that keep out the water, some that keep things really warm. This is about a medium to heavyweight row cover that's about 3 years old now, and it still works really, really well. And you can see our cabbage plants have lots of space underneath here to grow free from butterfly invaders. So we're going to do the same thing over at our kale bed, so keep watching. Okay, so now we're ready to put our floating row cover over our kale. We already showed you what it looks like over our cabbages, so now you can get an idea in your head of, oh, that's what it's going to look like, but how do we actually put it in place? Well, before we do that, we're going to make sure we've done everything we can to this bed and this kale before we cover it up. Because once it's covered up, it's rather tedious to open it up and to change things and do other things. So we want to do as much as we can before we cover it up. First thing, weeding out the whole bed, of course. We don't want to have weeds growing up in there that we can't pull out easily. So we've already gone through and weeded everything out. The second thing is, do you think there's anything in here already that's going to start attacking your plants? Beetles, crickets, grubs, slugs or snails, things like that. If so, we might want to put some slug bait or some insecticidal soap or some neem oil on our plants or around the soil just to prevent those things. It's early spring, so I'm not too worried about it. So we're just going to go ahead and put our floating row cover in. First step for that is the hoops. We're going to space these out about 1.5 to 2 meters between them. And that's because it'll keep a nice tension on the row cover so that it doesn't sag or get blown or whipped around in the wind. So let's do that now. So we take our first hoop, we come to the beginning of our bed, and we're going to put it right into the ground just like that. Now when you're pushing it into the ground, you're going to want to make sure you're not up here pushing, you're right towards the bottom, because these hoops are not made out of a very strong material, so they easily bend and break. So I think our first hoop is nice and strong. We'll go about to the halfway point, and we'll put in our second hoop. We want to make sure it's on a nice straight line with the first one. Again, gripping it fairly low, putting it in the ground about 4 or 5 inches or about 10 or 15 centimeters. That one's nice and strong. Now we go all the way to the end. We're going to go a little bit past the last plants, so these plants actually have some space to grow up and spread out. So we're a little bit past right there. Whoop, feels like I'm hitting a stone, so I just moved over a few centimeters and I found a place where there wasn't a stone. Very good, very good. So there's our 3 hoops. Now it's time to stretch our floating row cover over the top. Now, one thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure you have at least an extra couple of feet or even a meter on each side past the hoops. That's going to give you the extra you need to tie it together and to weight it down so that it creates a nice seal away from the insects and other things that want to get into your plants. So we're going to do that now. As you can see, we've got a lot of extra here, but that's okay. It's just going to sit off the end and not be a problem to anyone or anything. I'm going to stretch it over like this. Make sure it's about in the center so there's an equal amount on each side. Then we're going to start at the back side here. We're going to make sure that we can get enough here so that it's going to create kind of a ponytail on the end. Now I'm going to grab something to put over the top of that. Here's a nice big stone that we can put right over the top. That's right. I usually give it a little bit of a twist. Just hold that there. And the stone can go right there on top. Now we do have carrots started here, so you want to make sure this isn't getting in the way of those carrots. And our carrots are starting here, so we're in good shape. So those carrots will still be able to spread out and this won't get in their way. Make sure we have enough on both sides. Can you pull that down, make sure? That looks good. Okay. Then we're going to come to our other side. I always do my ends first before I do my sides. This allows me to get the good tension that I need. I'll grab another weight. Now these are Japanese roofing tiles that I'm going to use here. Again, I'm making sure that I'm keeping enough slack on each side so that it'll be covered, but it can be adjusted later, so that you don't have to be too worried about it. Okay. We're going to pull the sides, pull hard against the sides like that. Good, that's right. And that's going to keep a nice tight fit. And again, we give it a little bit of a twist here. Put 1, 2 roofing tiles over that. Then we're going to take what we have here, we're going to roll it up. And we'll get another roof tile to put on top of that to keep it secure. Okay, so now we've got our ends secure. Now we're going to work on the sides. And this is probably the most difficult and most important point, because this is the way most insects will come in, just crawling right under the bottom. So if you come over in close, you can see that this is well covered, but you can reach your whole hand in there. So what we've got to do is bury this under the soil. So what we're going to do is come along the edge here and dig a nice trench, making sure of course not to damage our net in the process. Good. Now we've got about, I don't know, 50 centimeters or a couple of feet dug out, just like that. Just like that. Then we're going to hold this down. We're going to push that dirt right onto the top of it. Just like that. Compact it down. And you can see that that is now nice and secure. The wind can blow on it and insects can try to crawl in it and they just won't be able to. So we're going to do that all the way along this side and then back to the other side. So keep watching. Okay, so now we've got our floating row cover in place, all tucked in so the insects can't get in, and now we're ready to water. Take it away, Junior. Now these floating row covers, you can water the plants right through them. No problem at all. When it rains, the rain also goes through. And you can use a few different settings on your hose as well. This is a good setting for watering. Let's change it to another one. Good. That one also works just fine. I wouldn't use the stream setting though. That would probably damage your plants. That one's good. So, we're almost finished. Oh, Junior! Okay, we'll see you next time.